Module 5, Lesson 4 is Factor Linear Expressions. The content objective says students will find the greatest common factor of the monomials and factor the algebraic expressions, and the suggested pacing says this one, it's going to take us a little while. Might as well get started because the sooner we get started, the sooner we're going to get finished. A group of 4 friends go to a concert. They each buy a ticket at the door, and they decide to share an order of nachos that costs $8. One of the friends realizes that the expression, obviously this is the nerd friend in the group, realizes the expression 4x plus 8, where x is the cost of each ticket, represents the total amount of money they spent at the concert. Yay! Let's keep going here. What could each of the expressions 4 times the sum of x and 8 and 4 times the sum of the x and 2 represent in the context of this scenario? Are either of them equivalent to the expression 4 times 4x plus 8 in the terms of the total cost? And explain your answer. These are the kind of things we're going to learn how to do in this lesson. Now, monomial is the first vocab we have for this lesson, and it says it is a number, a variable, or the product of a number and one or more variables. For some reason, my students have a terrible time with this, but it's really, really simple. If it can be written as a single number, for example, 25, or the product of a number and variable, 2 times x, then it's going to be a monomial. If it is written with a plus sign or a minus sign separating 2 terms, it is not a monomial. Mono means one number, one nomial. So for example here, negative 12x, that's a monomial. This sucker, it has a plus sign, not a monomial. 60 times x, monomial. I said monomial. Negative 2/3 x, that's negative 2/3 times x, monomial. And this puppy over here, it has a minus sign between 2 terms. It is not a monomial. Easy math. If it is separated by a plus or minus sign, it's not a monomial. If it's straight multiplication going on, it is a monomial. To factor a number means to write it as a product of its factors. That's a vocab term. A monomial can be factored using the same method you would to factor any number. The greatest common factor of 2 monomials is the greatest monomial that both of them have in common, and the greatest common factor is also any variables that the monomials have in common. And then we're going to select the cards here, looking at this with numbers. The greatest common factor of 25 and 30 is going to be 5, because 5 is the largest number that will divide into both 25 and 30. The greatest common factor of 25x and 30x is 5x, because 5x is the largest number that divides into both 25x and 30xy. I think I left the y off last time I said that. I know this one here is a little fuzzy to you, but I have a sneaky feeling we're going to be going through enough of them in our lesson today that you're going to get a good solid understanding of them. So let's take and find the greatest common factor of 12y and 30y. That means we're going to have to factor them. Now the textbook factors in ways that I don't, but that's okay. Let's see what they have for us, and then I'll show you the way I would do these when we're done. Here we're going to take and look for the factors of 12. The factors of 12 we're going to list in blue. Well, you could do 1 times 12. You could do 2 times 6. Or you could do 3 times 4. That's going to be our factors of 12. Our factors of 30, 1 times 30, 2 times 15, 3 times 10, and 5 times 6. So when you look at those, what do they have in common? They have a 1, a 2, a 3, and a 6 in common. Of those numbers, the greatest of them is going to be 6, so that means that 6 is going to be your greatest common factor. The next question the textbook asks us is, does the expressions 12y and 30y have a common variable? And the answer is yes. And what is that common variable? Y. And therefore you could say that the common variable is the greatest common factor of the variables, so the greatest common factor of the variables is y again, and check your answers, and all those checked as well. To find the greatest common factor, you're going to take and multiply the greatest common factor of the coefficients, which we found was 6, and the greatest common factor of the variable, which we found was y. Therefore, your final answer, the greatest common factor of 12y and 30y, is going to be 6y. Now, that is not the way I would do this problem. I've got other methods I would go by, and let me take a minute and show you how I would solve them. So we've got 12y and 30y, and I think you're going to like my method better. It involves good old-fashioned upside-down division. I'm going to write my numbers, 12y and 30y. 2 goes into 12y, 6y times. 2 goes into 6y, 3y times. And 3 goes into 3y, y times. So that's 2 times 2 times 3 times y. 30. 2 goes into 30y, 15y times. 3 goes into 15y, 5y times. And 5 goes into 5y, y times. So that's 2 times 3 times 5 times y. Now, what do they have in common? Well, they both are sharing a 2 here. And they're both taking and sharing a 3 here. Times 3. And they're both going to take and share a y there. Times y. 2 times 3 times y is 6y. That's the way I would work these problems, and I'd really like it if you worked them this way too. Now it's going to be your turn. Find the greatest common factor of 12x and 28x. Use upside down division. Alright, taking the upside down division approach, 2 goes into 12x, 6x times. 2 goes into 6x, 3x times. And 3 goes into 3x, x times. So that's going to be 2 times 2 times 3 times x. For this one, 2 goes into 28, 14x times. 2 goes into 14x, 7x times. And 7 goes into x, 7x, x times. So that's 2 times 2 times 7 times x. So let's look at what they have in common. First off, they share two 2's. So I'm going to come down here, 2 times 2. They also share 1x times x. That means my greatest common factor, 2 times 2 times x, is 4x. And 4x is going to be the largest number that will divide into both 12x and 28x. Check the answer. Our answer checks. But what if they were mean and threw in that extra variable of b in there? It's really not going to have any effect on how things work. You can do it all the same way. Now, taking a look at how they're going to do it, they're probably going to do that silly thing where they did the numbers and the variables separate, but that's not the way I'm going to do it. I'll show you their way though. They had the prime factorization is written for 18 is 2 times 3 times 3 times a. Pretend they did upside down division there. And then they have the prime factorization of 20ab as being 2 times 2 times 5 times a times b. Once again, pretend they did upside down division there. Now they want us to select what they have in common, so they share a 2 and they share an a. And that's the only things that they actually have in common is a 2 and an a. Therefore, the greatest common factor is 2 and a, otherwise known as just 2a. We can take that 2a, type it in right here, and check. Yeah, that was pretty danged easy. Our talk about it says the factor 2 is common in each term, but why can we only use one 2 of the term of 20ab? And you can see when we did that, we selected these 2's here, and we selected the a here, but they had another 2 right here. We couldn't select it because there was not another 2 up there to match it with. They have to have a matching partner in order to be selected. And once again, it's going to be your turn. Use upside down division to solve this problem and find the greatest common factor of 25y and 15xy. Did your answer check well? Let me show you how I do it with upside down division, because this is what I'm going to be expecting you to do. So 5 is going to go into 25y, 5y times. 5 is going to go into 5y, y times, and if you multiply them back, 5 times 5 is 25 times y, that gives you the 25y. So my factors are going to be 5 times 5 times y. 15xy, 3 goes into 15xy, 5xy times, 5 goes into 5xy, xy times, and x goes into xy, y times. So that becomes 3 times 5 times x times y. Now what do they share? Well, first off, they both share a 5, which I'm going to bring down, and they both share a y, which I'm going to bring down. So my greatest common factor, that is going to be 5 times y, also known as 5y. So I'm going to come back over here, type in 5y, and check, and our answer checks. Easy math. This is where we're going to stop part 1 of this lesson. I'm thinking we're on lesson 4, but it gets kind of fuzzy after a while. We're going to come back for part 2, where we only have about 7 resources to go through to get to the finish line. I will see you in a little bit.